In the 11th century, power did not belong to the righteous, it belonged to the bold. A Norman who outwitted popes, an English king who hesitated, and a sultan who captured an emperor, Robert Guiscard, Harold Godwinson, Alp Arslan. 3 rulers, 3 strategies, 1 brutal question: what truly decides who survives history? One of the most striking figures of Norman expansion in the Middle Ages was Robert Guiscard, whose nickname meant the Cunning. He was a leader of Norman knights who defeated the army of Pope Leo IX in southern Italy and later expelled the Arabs from Sicily, earning fame as one of the most successful military adventurers of the 11th century. The Norman campaigns left a deep mark on world military history. Originally Scandinavian warriors, the Normans terrorized much of Europe with their raids and eventually established their own state in northern France, Normandy. From there, they moved outward, often appearing as mercenary leaders or warrior adventurers who, through battlefield success, rose to power in foreign lands. Southern Italy in the early Middle Ages was a region of constant conflict. Lombard dukes, local counts, city-states, Saracens, Arabs, and Byzantine Greeks all struggled for control of this fertile land. In the 10th and early 11th centuries, a new force entered this volatile arena: the Normans. Their arrival was almost accidental. In 1016, a small group of about 40 Norman knights passed through the city of Salerno while returning from a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. At that moment, the city was under threat from Saracens who had already conquered Sicily and were advancing on the mainland. The Normans intervened, defeated the attackers, and saved the city. This episode became widely known across Europe and marked the beginning of Norman ambitions in southern Italy. Among these warriors was Robert Guiscard, whose birth date is unknown. He was one of 12 sons of a minor Norman knight, Tancred of Hauteville. His elder brother, William Iron Arm, had already seized the city of Malfi and declared himself Count of Apulia. Yet Robert surpassed all his brothers in ambition, talent, and ruthlessness. Legends about Guiscard's cunning survive in historical tradition. One story tells how, during a siege of a heavily fortified city, he pretended to be dead. His camp erupted in mourning, and his men humbly begged the city authorities to allow them inside the walls to bury their fallen leader in a church. Once inside, Guiscard leapt from his coffin, distributed hidden swords to his men, and seized the city from within. Guiscard and his fellow Norman leaders defeated Byzantine forces in 2 major battles, at Olivento and Cannae. Their next target was Rome itself. Pope Leo IX understood the danger well. Although the Normans were Christians, they showed little respect for church property. A Norman invasion threatened not only the city but also its sacred treasures. In 1053, after the Normans ravaged Apulia, Pope Leo IX decided to confront them militarily. He assembled an army of several thousand Italian and German knights, reinforced by the Roman garrison. By contrast, Guiscard and his brother Humphrey commanded only about 3,000 men, including fewer than 1,000 Norman knights and a large number of hardened mercenaries. The two forces met near Civitate in northern Apulia. Pope Leo proved to be a poor commander and lost control of his army early in the battle. The Italian troops fled almost immediately, leaving the German knights isolated. The Germans fought bravely but were overwhelmed and nearly annihilated. Pope Leo IX attempted to flee but was captured by the Normans. He was treated with respect, though forced to sign a treaty on their terms. From that point on, the Normans no longer feared papal military power. In 1059, Pope Nicholas II granted Robert Guiscard the title Duke of Apulia and Calabria, on one condition: he must expel the Arabs from Sicily. Guiscard fulfilled this task successfully, gaining lasting fame as a Christian commander of the 11th century. Harold Godwinson, later known as Harold the Meek, was born in 1022 and rose to power during the reign of the pious but weak Anglo-Saxon King Edward the Confessor. The most powerful man in England at the time was Harold's father, Earl Godwin of Wessex. After Godwin's death in 1053, Harold inherited vast lands and effectively governed the kingdom. Along with this power, he inherited the hatred of his younger brother Tostig, Earl of Northumbria, a bitter and ambitious man whose resentment would have disastrous consequences for England. In 1064, Harold's fate took a dramatic turn. While sailing along the southern coast of England, his ship was wrecked in a storm and he was captured under the medieval shore law by the Count of Ponthieu, who demanded a ransom. Unexpectedly, Harold was rescued by William, Duke of Normandy, who paid for his release. William's motives were far from charitable. He claimed the English throne and forced Harold to swear a solemn oath supporting William's succession after Edward's death. Breaking such an oath, sworn under duress and religious ceremony, was considered a grave sin. When Edward the Confessor died in January 1066, he named Harold as his successor. Supported by the English nobility, Harold was crowned king at Westminster Abbey. His reign was doomed from the start. Tostig rebelled and allied himself with Harald Hardrada, king of Norway. In September 1066, the Norwegian fleet invaded northern England. Harold marched swiftly from London and met the invaders at Stamford Bridge, where he achieved a stunning victory. Hardrada was killed, Tostig captured and executed, and only a fraction of the Norwegian fleet returned home. But Harold had no time to rest. News soon arrived that William of Normandy had landed in southern England. Exhausted, Harold marched south and took a defensive position on Senlac Hill, near Hastings. On October 14, 1066, the decisive Battle of Hastings was fought. The English infantry initially repelled Norman cavalry attacks. William then used a feigned retreat, the same tactic Harold had used against the Norwegians. English militia pursued, lost formation, and were cut down by returning Norman cavalry. Norman archers then showered the hill with arrows. Harold was mortally wounded, according to tradition, struck in the eye by an arrow. His brothers fell beside him, and the English army collapsed. Harold Godwinson died defending his banner. He became the last Anglo-Saxon King of England, and William the Conqueror took the throne, founding the Norman dynasty that would forever change English history. Alp Arslan, whose name in Turkic means brave lion, was one of the most formidable rulers of the Seljuk Empire and a commander who knew how to learn from defeat. History remembers him above all as the Sultan who captured a Byzantine emperor, an event that forever changed the balance of power in the medieval Near East. In the mid-11th century, the Byzantine Empire was in deep crisis. From beyond the Danube, Pachinic tribes launched constant raids. In the west and south, the empire fought Norman forces both on land and at sea. In Bulgaria, large popular uprisings erupted one after another. But the greatest threat came from the east. In Asia Minor, the Seljuk Turks were steadily advancing. They had already seized most of Armenia and were pressing ever deeper into imperial territory. Many in Constantinople, not only aristocrats and clergy, but also military men, understood that the empire needed a strong and energetic ruler to confront this danger. Such a man soon appeared. After the death of Emperor Constantine X, his widow Eudokia, under pressure from the court elite, married a talented general named Romanos Diogenes. Thus, Romanos IV became the new Basileus of Byzantium. His primary task was clear: to restore military strength and halt the Seljuk advance. Romanos clearly saw the causes of Byzantine military failures. The army had long relied on mercenaries, lacked discipline, and suffered from poor organization. Throughout 1067, sparing neither himself nor the imperial treasury, Romanos worked to rebuild the army, increasing its numbers, restoring mobility, and reviving its fighting spirit. Much of this effort bore fruit. In 1068, Romanos launched his first campaign against the Seljuks, who had imprudently settled their winter camps in Phrygia and Cappadocia, dangerously close to Constantinople. Marching swiftly through mountain passes, the Byzantine army appeared unexpectedly before the forces of Sultan Alp Arslan, denying him time to gather reinforcements. Alp Arslan, nephew of the great Seljuk leader Tural Beg, was an experienced commander. Though not always victorious against Byzantium, he possessed a crucial quality: the ability to learn from setbacks. A major battle took place near Sebastia, modern Sivas. The Seljuks were defeated, though their losses were limited. Their salvation lay in the mobility of their light cavalry, which skillfully avoided Byzantine archers and heavy armored cavalry. Recognizing the situation, Alp Arslan wisely withdrew into Armenia and Mesopotamia, avoiding another decisive engagement. Romanos continued his advance, entering Armenia and besieging the fortress of Aklat on Lake Van. Yet fortune soon turned. A Byzantine detachment sent toward Media was ambushed and destroyed by Alp Arslan's forces on open, barren terrain ideal for steppe cavalry tactics. Forced to lift the siege, Romanos maneuvered westward as Seljuk armies struck toward Iconium, modern Konya. Once again, the emperor outmaneuvered his rival, approaching the Seljuks from the rear and defeating them near Heraclea, modern Erli. However, the Byzantines failed to pursue, allowing Alp Arslan to retreat to northern Syria. By 1070, Romanos seemed triumphant. The Seljuks had been pushed out of most imperial territory. Constantinople welcomed the victorious emperor in celebration, but the conflict was far from over. Determined to break Byzantine power, Alp Arslan launched a new invasion in 1071, personally capturing the fortress of Manzikert. Meanwhile, another Seljuk army inflicted a serious defeat on Byzantine forces near Sebastia. Romanos responded by assembling nearly all the empire's remaining military strength, troops from even the most distant provinces. The army was vast, perhaps 50,000 strong, but largely composed of mercenaries, Franks, Varangians, Bulgarians, Pechenigs, and others. Ethnic Byzantines formed only a small portion. In August 1071, the two armies met near Manzikert. The Byzantine army deployed in its traditional double battle line. Romanos personally commanded the front line, while the second was entrusted to Andronikos Doukas, a man who secretly conspired against him. Alp Arslan offered peace on favorable terms, but Romanos refused, demanding the complete withdrawal of Seljuk forces from imperial lands. Battle was inevitable. The Seljuk light cavalry showered the Byzantines with arrows, carefully avoiding close combat. Throughout the day, Alp Arslan skillfully lured the imperial army forward. By evening, Romanos ordered a withdrawal to protect his camp. At that moment, betrayal struck. Andronikos Doukas deliberately withdrew his forces instead of supporting the emperor. Romanos' army was split in two, surrounded by Seljuk cavalry. The imperial troops were overwhelmed. As night fell, Romanos IV Diogenes was captured alive. For the first time in history, a Byzantine emperor became a prisoner of a Muslim ruler. Alp Arslan treated his captive with respect and released him after securing promises of ransom. But back in Constantinople, a palace coup overthrew Romanos. He was captured, blinded, and left to die, a tragic end for a capable reformer. The Seljuks never received the promised tribute. Instead, Alp Arslan unleashed a full-scale conquest of Asia Minor. Byzantine resistance collapsed. Peasants often welcomed the new rulers, who expelled aristocratic landlords and redistributed land in exchange for modest taxes. Alp Arslan did not live to complete his conquests. During a campaign in Central Asia, he was mortally wounded by a prisoner. His son, Malik Shah, succeeded him and expanded the Seljuk Empire to the Mediterranean Sea. According to legend, Malik Shah rode his horse into the waves and dipped his sword 3 times into the water, declaring that his father's empire now reached the edge of the known world. Thus ended the life of Alp Arslan, the brave lion, a ruler whose victory at Manzikert reshaped medieval history and sealed the fate of Byzantine Asia Minor.